to chapter 3. Chapter 3 in Esther. That's going to be on page 517. And let's go to verse 1 through 4. It says, later King Xerxes promoted Haman, we'll get to that in a minute, the son of Hammedathel, to the highest position in the kingdom. Don't act like you know how to say it. Haman was, watch, this is important, don't miss this. Haman was a descendant of Agag. The king had given orders for his officials of the royal gate to honor Haman by kneeling down to him. All of them obeyed except Mordecai. When the other officials asked Mordecai why he disobeyed the king's command, he said, because I'm a Jew. They spoke to him for several days about kneeling down, but he still refused to obey. Finally, they reported this to Haman to find out if he would let Mordecai get away with it. So they're like, yo, man, you got this dude, and are you going to let him do that? I mean, you're kind of a big deal. Are you going to let this guy get away with this? We have this issue where this guy's relatives killed this guy's relatives, so now they've never let go of that. They've kind of held a grudge against each other, and their families have held a grudge against each other for a long time. I wrote down some examples. It'd be like this. How many of you guys have ever seen West Side Story? Anyone? Like, it's like that. It's like an old movie. And there's two gangs, right? And instead of fighting, they go, which I dare you. Next time you're in a fight, next time you're in a fight, instead of being like, oh what? Do like this. Because they're gonna leave. They're either gonna leave or they're gonna beat you to death. I don't know. One of the two. Either way, you're gonna make it on YouTube. So it's kind of a win situation. So listen. So there's this bad blood. So it's kind of like West Side Story. It's like the whole, Hatfields and McCoys kind of thing. It's like East Coast rapper versus West Coast rapper. It's kind of like Wiregrass versus Wesley Chapel. Oh. Got it. Well, I'm sorry. Too soon. Too soon for that. It's kind of like vampires versus werewolves kind of thing. District 8 versus District 70. And this is kind of what we're seeing in this story between Mordecai and Haman. There's this grudge, there's this unforgiveness, and that grudge has held on to their heart and darkened their heart against each other and their families. And so no one can move past it. So maybe for you today, listen guys, maybe you need to ask God today to begin to work on your heart about this grudge you're holding against somebody, or unforgiveness that you're holding against somebody. Now in chapter 4, Mordecai, look, he's tore up over this, because he knows kind of his stubbornness and his pride and his ego brought on, listen, this death sentence for his whole family and everybody else. So go to chapter 4 and look at verse 1 through 3. When Mordecai heard about the letter, he tore his clothes, like Hulk Hogan, right? He tore his clothes in sorrow. He put on sackcloth. I've explained this to you before. It's kind of like a rough potato sack. Like when people would be in sorrow or mourning, they would put this on, and they would scratch all against them just to remind them like how sorrowful they were. Like, to me, I'm just sad. I put on some Adele. I cry myself to sleep. Everything is fine the next morning. Like, but they would put on like a potato sack, right, kind of thing, and to remind himself. Then he covered his head with ashes and went through the city crying and weeping. But he could only go as far as the palace gate because no one wearing sackcloth was allowed inside the palace. Verse 3. In every province, listen, where the king's orders were read, the Jews cried and mourned, and they went without eating. Many of them put on sackcloth and sat in the ashes. He's in a difficult position right now, man. And this is kind of what happens with us. God opens these doors for us. God needs us to do something. And we say, look, we make all these excuses, and we say, well, I can't because. I can't. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't speak very well. I'm not like, I get nervous in front of people. I know God has kind of put someone in my life. I don't know what to say. I don't really know the Bible well. I don't really like that kid. That dude's breath stank. So I don't even ever want to talk to him. We make all these excuses. Listen to me. Look, I'm the best at this. That when God opens doors for me, instead of me just being like, yeah, I'm taking it. Boom, kick the door down. Earl's here. I'm like this. Oh, not at all. Really? It's a big show. I'm a fake, a liar, a phony, hypocrite. Okay, easy. Easy with the H word, man. Look, and this is what people in the Bible have done all the time. When Moses was called out, Moses tells God, God says, I want you to go rescue my people. And Moses goes, oh, I can't. He gives him 5 reasons. He's like, I'm this, I'm that, I don't know. And God goes, you're a pansy is what your problem is. Now go. And Moses is like, all right. Jeremiah, he calls Jeremiah, a guy named Jeremiah. Jeremiah's like, I'm too young, like I can't. Everybody comes up with these excuses. Listen to me. God is going to open doors for you to impact people around you. And the last thing he wants to hear from you is your excuses. And all of a sudden, he has now opened this opportunity for Esther to go in and potentially save her people. And she goes, I can't because fill in the blank. This is our life, man. This is exactly what we do. Look at verse 15 and 16 in chapter 4. Esther sent a message to Mordecai saying, bring together all the Jews in Susa. Then I will go in to see the king. This, guys, listen to me. This last sentence in here. Oh my gosh, I wish there were young people and even old people who would have this kind of boldness and this kind of courage to step out of their comfort zone and take a risk like Esther is about to do. This last sentence, she says, and there's a different version that I like. She says this, if I perish, I perish. God says, is there anybody here who has the courage and the boldness and the bravery to step into their school and share Jesus with people who need to hear it because they're thinking about taking their own life? Because they're struggling with things going on in their own home. Because their life they feel like they have no hope and no meaning. God says, who are these young people that are going to step in there and take a risk and be willing to say, if I get made fun of, I get made fun of. If I get pointed at, I get pointed at. If I get beat up, I get beat up. If I perish, I perish. You know what God is saying to you right now? He's saying, take note. Because what I'm looking for is somebody who will go into a jacked up school. Somebody who will spark some life into their jacked up family. Somebody who will go out and breathe hope and life into your jacked up friend's life. God is saying, that's who I'm looking for. God says, I'm looking for people who will say, if I perish, I perish.